Welcome back, everyone, to Season 2, Episode 2 of Water Polo Wednesday. First impressions are a big deal, and boy, were there some big ones made in our first weekend of action of women's college water polo. Stanford is rolling right out the gates. Hawaii had a bit of a stumble, and Fresno State is impressing. All that, a soon-to-be record holder as our special guest tonight, and we've got a ton to talk about on this episode of Water Polo Wednesday.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Water Polo Wednesday with Wes and Clay.
I'm Wes, and that was
I'm
weird.
Clay. Hey, everybody. We got a lot of water polo going on. Of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, hit the follow button, like, subscribe, Instagram, all those things. If you're enjoying it and you want more of it, do those things, please. And if you have any commentary or feedback, please hit the comments or send an email to waterpolowednesday@gmail.com. We will check it. But let's break down the scores of last weekend first and see where things landed.
Yeah, so we'll jump right now to our score report. I like this. We've got the new logo there for the women's side. So Fresno versus Michigan. Fresno beat Michigan 16-14. Cal beat San Jose State 19-7, and then Hawaii beat San Jose State 15-6. Stanford beat San Diego 15-4. Cal then beat Fresno 13-10. Michigan over San Jose State. Tough weekend for San Jose there. Michigan leading, taking the game there 15-13. Stanford then took on Hawaii, beat them 12-7. Cal beat San Diego 24-8. And then USC beat LMU 16-10. Cal over Hawaii 17-9. San Diego then beats San Jose State 13-12. And Fresno beat UCSD 14-9. So long weekend, a lot of games. This isn't even all the games, but there's all that I can fit on the screen. And so that's what we have in terms of the score report. So that's exciting. As we mentioned, a lot of games, a lot of tournaments going on. We couldn't capture more of them there.
Yeah. Can you put that back up for a second? Is that possible?
Yeah. Sure, yeah.
What of these games are the surprises, or who would you say was looking the most impressive this first weekend?
Sure. So most impressive. Okay, we'll start with most impressive.
Sure.
It is very clear that Ryan Neuschel is playing a different game than everybody else at Stanford. Mm-hmm. Stanford is a force, and there are other pieces here for Stanford, right? They're Jenna Flynn's on the team, Jewel Romer is on the team, right? But Ryan Neuschel is different, and I think she was 6 of 7 shooting in the first half against Hawaii, and then drew 3 exclusions. And it was, she's so good and so talented. She does everything really well. I watched most of these games. The ones I didn't watch the full game, I tried to kind of buzz through, but the way she plays is at a level that is not quite matched by anybody else that I've seen in the women's game out of this first weekend. It's not to say nobody else will rise to that level, but she's come in, kind of on a mission in her last year. And so Stanford to me is really the team. Obviously Cal looks very good. They were an NCAA finalist last year. We've yet to see UCLA, but Stanford, they've got these Olympic players back as we've talked about before. And I think that they're going to be a force, man. They're going to be tough to beat.
Yeah.
The other team, I would say, Clay, I was really impressed with Fresno State this weekend. Now, I know they were at home. Michigan is always a very good team. Michigan's quite good. But Fresno was very close. I mean, it was a tight game with Cal. It was, they handled UCSD quite well. They didn't put up as many goals, I think, as they wanted to. I think that score is not necessarily as indicative as how much better I thought Fresno was. It was kind of their last game of the weekend, so you never know when you get into the depths and you get into later weekend games and the 4-game weekend. It's not always accurately representative of your potential, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I thought they were really quite good. They dropped a very close one to Cal. They beat San Diego. They beat Michigan. I thought they're a good team, and I think they're far and away the best team in their GCC right now. I know LMU is in there, and LMU's good. And that's going to be an exciting matchup. But I was really impressed with Fresno this past weekend. And that team there.
In comparison to as you know, some of our listeners, as I am more familiar with the men's side, is there a top 4 or top 6 or top 8 on the women's side that are typically most dominant? Then it might drop off a little bit after that.
Yeah, so it's top 4 in my mind. Right now it's top 4. And it's your Stanford, Cal, USC, UCLA. And it seems like there's probably a 3 to 5 goal difference between 4 and 5 right now. Okay. The men, I would say a little more parity. Maybe.
The most that we've seen.
Sure.
Like this year.
Yeah. So, yes. So 5 or 6. The women seem to be like, if they're in the top 4.
Got it.
Is what I would say there.
And where would you put Fresno next to that top 4?
I think they're 5th. I think they're a very clear 5th. And until somebody says differently, like until something happens where, they get beat by somebody that's not Cal, USC, Stanford, or UCLA, I think they're probably 5th just on the way they played today. Now, that being said, like Princeton could be very, very good this year with Jovana Sekulic coming back. ASU might surprise some people. I think Hawaii. I think Hawaii could be very good this year. It's going to take some time, but yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, who would you say maybe needs to improve or has the most growth potential throughout the season, but maybe just didn't start as strong as they wanted to?
Yeah, sure. I think every team will sit here and tell you that they're not where they want to be, and so every team's going to say, hey, we need to improve throughout the season. I don't think anybody is coming in after weekend 1 and going, we're good.
Fair.
We don't need to improve.
Fair.
I think, we talked about this last week. It's going to be really interesting to see how the Big West plays out, because there's going to be more parity there in that league, in that division, if you will, that conference, I should say, than we've seen in a while. Hawaii had an insanely difficult first weekend of playing Stanford and Cal. Like, good grief, right? The NCAA finalist in Cal and Stanford, who's got some pretty darn good players. I mean, again, Ryan Neuschel. And so that's a pretty tough first weekend. To compound matters, they lost Bia Mentalado, again, who went to UCLA. And right. Look, you can't overstate this. Bia was the Big West Player of the Year as a freshman and a sophomore. You lose that kind of leader in the pool, even if they're not the most vocal, spiritual leader. There's somebody who's, when they're in the pool, they're picking things up for you and moving your team. That's really hard. Now, I know that they have 4 other Olympians on that team from different countries, so they've got some very high level experience in some of the women on that team. It's just a huge loss for them, and so they're going to need to come together as a unit and find their way this year. It's going to be a journey for them this year. I expected them to, not be maybe as sharp as they have been in the past couple of years. And I think, James Robinson is the new coach there. He's in his first year, so it's going to be a journey for them. And it's certainly not to say they can't win the Big West. They absolutely have the talent to do it. But I think it's going to be exciting to see how they build from this and how they get better throughout the year. I'm very excited. I'm looking very much forward to their upcoming games, and they've got a full season to be at their best at the end, which is right. That's really all that matters, right? Better to lose in the beginning than lose at the end. So at the end of the day, these games are somewhat academic, and you kind of move forward and win the games you got to win going forward, and find, galvanize that team and rise up and continue to improve. Better, never best, as we like to say, Clay.
Yeah, we do like to say that.
Yeah.
Well, that was an action-packed weekend, and they will continue to be so. In terms of who we're looking at coming up next weekend, what's on your watch list?
Yeah, so this next weekend is very exciting. Cal is hosting a tournament where they're going to play a couple of key games against the top 4 teams. They'll get Stanford in an exhibition match, though I can tell you that nobody on either team is going to consider that an exhibition match. Right there, nobody's gonna be like, "Oh, it's okay, we lost. Like, it was an exhibition match." I've never been able to do that. I can't imagine these elite competitors are able to do that. So that could be very interesting. UCLA plays Stanford in an exhibition match, which you could see being pretty interesting. I gotta feel like going into the season, those are the two favorites to win the NC2As this year. I think there's others that could challenge them, but UCLA is the reigning champ with Lauren Steele, who we had on last week, and obviously Stanford being led by Ryan Neuschel. I think that's a big deal. LMU heads to Hawaii for the Rainbow Invitational. Again, if anybody would like to send us to Hawaii to do an on location water polo Wednesday, feel free to raise your hand. Our email at waterpolowednesday@gmail.com. So that's going to be really exciting, right? Like Hawaii's hosting that tournament. They're going to face LMU and ASU and Biola. And so I'm really interested to see, because LMU was really good last year. Again, they went undefeated in conference. Hawaii also really good last year. Hawaii did make it to the NCAA tournament. LMU did not, losing to Fresno State in their final. And so that's going to be a good matchup. I think that's going to be a nice pressure test for both those teams. And ASU's a good team. It's a very good team. The coach there, actually the sister of Ben-Day Party at Cal. And so we're connected there as well. So that's exciting. Those should be amazing games. I'm excited to see how all that shakes out. And then, of course, the Princeton Invitational, hosted at Princeton with LIU, Wagner, and LaSalle. I'm excited for this more than anything because we've got some friends out at Princeton. It's a perfect kind of segue for us, right, if you will. Rachael Carver, the standout from Laguna Beach, will be attempting to break the Princeton assist record. She'll be going for the number one spot on the assist record as a 4-5 right-hander, which you'll love to see, Clay.
Yes, you do.
Warms my heart because that's the position I played growing up. She deals dimes, as we like to say, and she'll be joining the show shortly right after this. Rachael, it is so great to see you. I'm kind of beaming. I've been looking forward to this for a number of weeks. We're so excited to have you on here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, awesome. So, Rachael, first question. You have a big week coming up. It's the start of your final season, right? You're in your last year here at Princeton. You're set to break the career assist record at Princeton, which is insane. As a right-handed attacker, Clay, a right-hander setting an assist record.
I know.
Talk to us about what's gotten you to this point. Like, this journey has got to be something that's pretty remarkable. Maybe you came in as a freshman thinking, I'm going to break the assist record, which I'd applaud. But what has this been like for you? Such an incredible experience.
Yeah. Well, you're right. I definitely didn't come into Princeton thinking I would break this record. But it's been such a privilege. I think transitioning from high school to college, my role as a player started to sort of shift more towards being more of a passer. My coach here kind of refers to me as the quarterback of the team. And I would say I have a very good vision of the pool and am able to, see my teammates kind of understand where the ball needs to go in order to score. And I would say I'm kind of a selfless player, and I'm also not the greatest shooter out there either. So if anything, I prefer setting up my teammates to score because I trust them. But obviously, it's been a long journey. And, my freshman year, I honestly didn't get too much playing time. And I would say my role over the years has definitely gotten a lot bigger. And while a lot of people may not love the 4-5 side, I love it. Not a great angle, of course, but a great angle for making good passes.
Yeah,
that's right.
And there's something so rewarding, right, about throwing a dime, as we call it. Somebody catches and shoots to a wide open net because you found that open person or you set the goalie. I can relate to that, having been a 4-5 right-handed attacker before these rules, and right-handed attacker was being, cool on the 4-5.
Yeah.
Defensively, is that something you're obviously going against the 1-2 on the other team? Is that something you take a lot of pride in as well, is kind of like locking down some of the more threatening attackers from other teams?
Yeah, I would say it's definitely a harder job. Obviously, guarding the 1-2 side comes with a lot of pressure because other teams tend to put their greater players, more threatening attackers on that side.
Yeah.
Not to expose my weaknesses, but I think I'm still, trying to become a better defender each day. My drive defense, it still could use some work. But that also, it makes it more challenging for me. And I love a good challenge, and I love matching up with those types of, feisty players who are always driving, constantly moving. So yeah, it's kind of the best of both worlds.
I love that. That's great. Growth mindset. Very exciting. Talk to us a little bit more about the season. You've got some standout players on your team there. What's the outlook and approach this year compared to last year? Would you say is there a change or any difference? And can you repeat, you think, at CWPA Championship?
Yeah, definitely. I think, obviously, as you guys probably know, our center, Jovana, she took last year off to train with the Olympic team, obviously made the Olympics, so incredible. And so last year our team was challenged with, adapting to playing without a true center. We have a lot of great, post-up center girls on our team, but her presence was very much there in the pool. So, we had to adjust and adapt our style of play. So I think with that, we got a lot more used to driving and picking and just having more girls posting up. And this year, with having her back, which has been awesome, our offense is kind of adjusting again. And, having that big center presence is great because it allows people on the outside to shoot and, kind of gives us more room to be creative. So I think it's been a learning experience last year. It's a learning experience right now too. So definitely adjusting takes time, but we're looking good for the season. So it'll be,
for sure. Clay and I like to say you can't throw a team together and expect them to go play a game. You've got to practice. You've got to get those reps together because it builds chemistry. And anytime you add a single new piece, it changes things.
Exactly.
We're gonna transition a little bit away from kind of school now. So you've got two younger sisters.
Yes.
One who's at USC today, right? One who's committed to SC for next year.
Yes.
Your dad went to USC. Your mom went to USC, and am I proud that you're not at USC? I think it's great, a little independence here. Well, she chose her own path today. I'm very, it's awesome.
This is an anti-SC comment.
No, it's not anti-SC. It's pro Rachael.
It's great.
Pro Rachael. Talk to us about, what went into that decision? Because look, I had a lot of family pressure to go where my parents went, and so I just be curious what went into that decision.
Yeah, well, it's funny because actually my aunt went there, my grandma, my grandpa. So I'm really the black sheep of the family, as I like to call it. But it was an extremely hard decision, probably the hardest decision of my life. Growing up, I went to USC water polo games. My dad played in the alumni games, and we'd go to basketball games and football games. So that was kind of all I knew growing up. And I always had this dream of going there, playing water polo. And I think the older I got, I started to realize that I wanted something different in my life. It was something just super familiar to me, and I wanted to do something different. COVID especially, my junior year, something kind of clicked, and I realized that I wanted to go out of state and try something different. I think, obviously, my high school and club teams, we were super successful, which was awesome, winning CIF, winning JOs numerous times. But with that, I think I also got a bit burnt out, and it kind of allowed me to reevaluate what I wanted the next 4 years to look like. And Princeton, like I said, is kind of the best of both worlds. In the fall, we're super restricted with the amount of hours we're allowed to train. Like, I would say we only had maybe 12 practices with our coach in the fall. Whereas, Michigan is in our conference. They're allowed to do 20 hours. And all of these other teams who are training like crazy in the fall, we're not allowed to do that. But with that, it allows me to focus on my schoolwork. I have a ton of friends outside of my team too, which is awesome. So the social aspect and perks of having water polo and being on a team. I mean, I couldn't imagine being in college without playing this sport. So it's allowed me to, grow as a person, grow as a student, grow as a player, and it's just been awesome. And I've made friends, met people from all around the world, and we've also been super successful as a team, which has been great.
Yeah. So no regrets, it seems.
No regrets.
Obviously, Princeton, a great choice, an
Yes.
unbelievable school, and good for you that you had that opportunity. I mean, you worked so hard, and good for you to kind of take that agency and make that decision. Far more mature than I was as a high school junior and senior, and so that's very cool. Yeah. I am curious, however, knowing that your dad played water polo, knowing that your two younger sisters play water polo, who's the most competitive in your house?
That's a good question. I would say my youngest sister.
It's always
Kara.
the youngest. It's always the youngest.
I was going to say me, but I think she's a senior in high school now, and she's feisty. I'll say it. She's aggressive. She's a little firecracker.
Yeah.
And so she's awesome. I mean, she brings out the competitiveness in me too.
Well, she's dealt with you and Hannah, right? She's been dealing with you and Hannah for her whole life. That's all she knows.
Taught her.
Exactly.
It's your own fault.
I mean, she's looked up to me my whole life, right?
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, so thank you for diving a little more on the personal side of it. We love to kind of learn more about the people who kind of join the show. Back to Princeton now. It's your final year. What goals do you have, maybe like as a team this year?
Mm-hmm. A lot. I mean, as I kind of mentioned earlier, our team is very small. We only have 16 girls.
Wow.
Which is much, much smaller compared to other teams.
Yeah.
So with that, each recruit, each player on the team has a super big role and impacts the team in many, many ways. So with that, I think this season we aim to be very intentional kind of with everything that we're doing. And with that, there comes a lot of responsibility and hard work, but ultimately our goal is to win conference. In the last 2 years, it's been us versus Michigan in the final. Yeah. And they're always a hard competitor.
Yeah, they're good.
Especially with Cassie Churnside taking over the program a year or two ago. They've definitely, kind of changed their program as well. And so winning conference obviously is one of our main goals, making it to NCAAs. And I think, this year brings new challenges too with all these Olympians returning. I mean, Ryan Neuschel coming back to Stanford, UCLA having Bia transfer from Hawaii and Emmeline back in Siena. So I think there's a lot of different moving pieces, but ultimately making it to NCAAs. And I think for me too, just enjoying my last college season and having fun, trying to always remind myself and keep that in my perspective, because sometimes it's hard, getting lost in all the emotions and hard work that water polo kind of brings out of you.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. That was kind of a team outlook. What about you personally? Do you have any personal goals this season? And on theme with this conversation, it could be water polo related or not.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, I really want to have fun this year.
Girls usually do.
Yeah.
He's referencing a 90s movie. It's called Girls Just Want to Have Fun. That was totally inappropriate. Totally off topic.
My bad.
No, I know you're talking about, I think. But yeah, individually having fun, making better passes is always one of my goals. Being a more confident shooter, I think, for me too. Like I said, the 4 or 5 side, it's not the greatest angle. So always trying to focus and work on my shooting. And I think just overall enjoying my last season.
Love it.
Yeah, that's great. Is there a certain metric that you're focused on, 6-on-5 percentage as a team, or earned exclusions, this type of thing?
I would say probably focusing on our 5-on-6 defense. I think we are definitely more of a defensive minded team. And because as the saying goes, defense wins games. So really focusing on defense, getting our blocks, making sure that we're moving well, and also just 6-on-6 playing defense in front court. I think, being able to move effectively and together as one unit is super important and something we're working on every single day. Moving from one drop to another and, highline press and just, again, putting all the pieces together to make that one puzzle, I think is always our main goal.
So we talked a little bit about a balance in life and having a really competitive, successful, but competitive and intense youth experience, high school experience, and going into college wanting something different. Talk to us a bit more about that difference, how you're experiencing that student athlete life, the limited hours of training, and how that's impacting your time at Princeton.
Yeah, definitely. I would say being a student athlete at Princeton comes with a lot of great challenges, but a lot of tremendous rewards. Each student at Princeton actually has to complete a thesis. So we all have to write a book, which is awesome.
Cool.
And
I never heard of that. Okay.
I get the pleasure of writing a book while also being in season and playing water polo. And I think, a lot of recognition doesn't kind of go to all of the behind the scenes that goes on at Princeton. Being a student athlete here has been, like I said, a great, great challenge, and also has offered many rewards. But I think, finishing this year off strong, being able to write and finish this book while also playing water polo, I hope is going to be just an incredible journey, and hopefully very rewarding.
What's your book about?
What's the book?
Yeah.
So I'm writing about prison systems. I'm doing a comparison between the United States and Finland and how these prison systems affect prisoners with mental health illnesses.
Interesting.
So it's been super interesting. And it kind of goes to show, everybody gets to pick their own topic, and it kind of really brings to life all of the hard work that this school brings within the 4 years of being here. So it'll be a great accomplishment, but it has to get done first. So
yeah, maybe this is a new thing. I know a lot of people who graduate from Princeton can't write a book, but good for you.
Thank you.
That's really amazing. But that's very cool. Well, thank you for sharing that with us, Rachael. It's obviously very meaningful. The last thing we like to ask people or open it up to is, the studio is yours. Is there anything you'd like to share with everybody, our 25, 30 listeners that we do have?
I'm just super excited for the season. It should be a very unique and exciting season, bringing about a lot of new challenges with a new team, new dynamics, and just trying to bring East Coast water polo to the top again. I think making it to the the semifinals my sophomore year, having such a big upset, beating Cal in the quarters at UOP was awesome. Being able to play USC in the semifinals of the tournament was such an incredible accomplishment, especially for our program. And I think, the expectation is very much the same. And, we hope to be there again this year.
Well, wishing you all the best. Cannot wait to see this season unfold for you and the 15 other women on your team. And of course, thank you for being here. It's been wonderful to have you. And we feel so honored you would spend the evening with us and just take this time to share your experience and kind of your nuggets of wisdom. So thank you, Rachael. Good luck this season. Go break that record this weekend. I'll be in touch. We're all rooting for you here. But as always, it's been really wonderful. So thank you for spending the time.
Thank you so much.
Sure. Bye.
There you have it. Episode 2, season 2. It's the 2-2.
What a great guest.
What a great guest. Rachel, these ladies are so much more well-spoken than the guys.
Well, that's not very nice to say. Anyway, thank you all for joining us. Another great episode in the books. We're excited about this women's season. Cannot wait to start doing some of the commentating here in the next few weeks. On next week's episode, we're going to have our first coach guest of this season, as well as talk a little bit more about the Men's National League and some of the key matchups coming up. So be sure to join us. Thank you all for spending a little time with us here this evening. And remember, life is short. Score goals.
Score goals.